Zoe Sherinian is the professor of ethnomusicology in the School of Music at the University of Oklahoma. She has published the book Tamil Folk Music as Dalit Liberation Theology in 2014. She has also co-edited the book called Making Congregational Music Local, Indigenous Songs and Cosmopolitan Styles in the Music of Global Christianity in 2017. She has also produced and directed 2 documentary films. First one, This is a Music, Reclaiming an Untouchable Drum in 2011. This film talks about the changing status of Dalit drummers in India. And the second documentary is called Shakti Vibrations. This movie was released in 2019. This film talks about the use of Tamil folk arts to develop self-esteem in young Dalit women at the Shakti Folk Cultural Center. She is presently writing a monograph entitled Drumming Our Liberation, the Spiritual, Cultural, and Sonic Power of the Parai Drum. Dr. Sherinian is an active musician who performs and conducts training on the Parai drum, and she also plays mirdangam and jazz drum. இதுவரைக்கும் நான் சொன்னது டாக்டர் ஜோயி அவர்களுடைய அறிவுக்கும் திறமைக்குமான சான்று. இனி நான் ஒரு கவிதையை படிக்க போறேன். இந்த கவிதை டாக்டர் ஜோயி அவர்களின் அன்புக்கான சான்று. இந்த கவிதையை எழுதியவர் அவங்களுடைய ஆசான் மணிமாறன் அவர்கள். டாக்டர் ஜோயி அவர்களுடைய பிறந்த நாளுக்காக இந்த கவிதையை எழுதி அவர் அனுப்பியிருக்காரு. இதை நான் தமிழ்லயே படிக்க போறேன். அமெரிக்காவில் பிறந்தாய், அனைத்து உலகையும் தன் ஊராக கருதி பூமி பந்தையே பூர்வீகம் என கொண்டாய். நீ வெள்ளைக்காரியாம், ஆம், வெள்ளை வன்மங்களை வெளுக்கும் கருப்பு மனம் கொண்ட வெள்ளைக்காரி. அமெரிக்காவில் உதயமான எங்கள் அங்கனூர் அங்கம்மாள் நீ. ஜாதிய தீண்டாமை கைகள் கலையையும் கலைஞர்களையும் தொட மறுத்த நிலையில் நீ பேரன்புடன் கட்டி அணைத்தாய். பரட்டை அடி அடிக்கும் உனது பறை இசையில் பாமரரும் சக்தி பெறுவர். பரட்டை அடி அடிக்கும் உனது பறை இசையில் பாமரரும் சக்தி பெறுவர். உனது பறை விரல்கள் பட்டாலே குறிஞ்சி மலர் பூக்கும். இசை ஆய்வாளரான பேராசிரியர் இவர் பறை இசை கலைஞனின் மாணவி என்றதில் இங்குள்ள பலரின் பகட்டு கிரீடங்கள் வீழ்ந்து நொறுங்கின. பறையாளர்களை நீ ஆசான் என்று அழைத்ததில் பறை கலைஞர்களின் மாண்பு பல படிகள் உயர்ந்தன. கற்பிக்கும் கலைஞர்களையும் குழுக்களையும் அங்கீகரிப்பதில் நன்றி மறப்பது நன்றென்று என்னும் குரலின் பொருள் நீ. ஜாதிய ஆணாதிக்க சூழலில் நிலவை போன்ற பறையுடன் நீ நெருக்கம் கொண்டதால் உன்னை ஒரு பெண் நீல் ஆம்ஸ்ட்ராங் என்பேன். ஜாதிய ஆணாதிக்க சூழலில் நிலவை போன்ற பறையுடன் நீ நெருக்கம் கொண்டதால் உன்னை ஒரு பெண் நீல் ஆம்ஸ்ட்ராங் என்பேன். நீ கலைத்தாயின் மகள் அல்ல, நீயே பலரை பிறப்பிக்கும் கருவறை. உலகளாவிய தமிழர்களின் உந்து சக்தி நீ. உள்ளூர் கலைஞர்களின் உயிர் காற்று நீ. உலக பறை களம் உன்னை எப்போதும் தன் நெஞ்சில் தாங்கிச் செல். ஓங்கி எழுகிற பறையொலியில் உனது பெயரும் உரத்து ஒலிக்கும். ஓங்கி எழுகிற பறையொலியில் உனது பெயரும் உரத்து ஒலிக்கும். பறை பரப்பும் தமிழ் மனத்தில் உனது புகழும் மணக்கும். பறை பரப்பும் தமிழ் மனத்தில் உனது புகழும் மணக்கும். பறை இசை வாழ்த்துகளுடன் மணிமாறன் மகிழினி, புத்தர் கலைக்குழு. இதுதான் அவர்கள் அனுப்பிய அந்த கவிதை. மிக அருமையான கவிதை. நானே மிகவும் ரசித்தேன். டாக்டர் ஜோயி அவர்களும் இதை ரசித்திருப்பார்கள் எனக்கு தெரியும். இப்போது டாக்டர் ஜோயி அவர்களை நான் அன்போடு அழைக்கிறேன். வாங்க டாக்டர் ஜோயி அவர்களே, வணக்கம்.
வணக்கம், காலை வணக்கம். எல்லாருக்கும் நன்றி. And I want to say a special greetings and hello to my teachers, a remembrance to my teachers. First of all, the 9 drummers of Kurinji Malar, and the word was, the phrase was mentioned in the poem, who live near Paramagudi in the village of Munivendri. My dear teacher Paratai, or Theophilus Apavu, from Tamil Nadu Theological Seminary, who first introduced me to Parai, as well as really Tamil Gramya Isai. And to Manimaran and his son Samaran, who I studied with most recently for about 6 months. So, but thank you all. to Chennai America for giving me this opportunity to share my research and just have Urvu with all of you, because that's what it's about. When Madam Perasier Manimehelai, asked about research. How do we do research? It's ultimately about love for the subject, Anbu, and for the people. And I love Tamil people. I love Tamil culture and language and food. And it's about creating relationship and sustaining that relationship over a lifetime. That's what research is about. And the knowledge that I put out is knowledge that's been given to me, blessed to me by in this case mostly Dalit people, and so that's what I'm trying to share.
Okay, thank you. We also love everyone. That is that's what our literature teaches us, right? யாதும் ஊரே யாவரும் கேளீர், உங்களையும் நாங்கள் எங்களோடு அணைத்துக் கொள்கிறோம். நீங்க இப்போ உங்ககிட்ட நான் கேட்கணும்னு நினைக்கிறது, உங்களுடைய இளமை காலம் உங்களுக்கு எப்படி இசையில் ஆர்வம் வந்தது? உங்களுடைய childhood and interest in music. How did you develop interest in music? அது பத்தி சொல்லுங்க.
Yeah. So I started playing percussion, drums, when I was age 11, and I continued, through high school, lots of experiences, and then went to Oberlin College and was both an anthropology major and a percussion performance major in the conservatory there. And so really combine those things, knowing that I wanted to be a professor and be in the discipline of ethnomusicology. And I was really grateful to have a professor, Roderick Knight, who had done research in folk music in India, as well as in Africa. And so he exposed me early to Indian music. And also my Mridangam guru, who I would eventually study with in my PhD studies at Wesleyan University, Sri Ramnath Raghavan, was living in Cleveland at the time, and he would come down to Oberlin, and I took some Mridangam lessons with him as a freshman. And I heard him perform with T. Vishwanathan and the American vocalist, I'm forgetting, his first name was John. So they performed in 1980 at Oberlin, and it was an amazing event for me just to see that one concert. I was completely intrigued with the Mridangam and the complexity of how do you play a meter or a tala of 5 or 7 on this instrument, and also just the kind of what we call groove, the syncopation on the left hand, was just very attractive to me. And so I really wanted to learn how that instrument worked. And that was my first introduction to Indian music, really. And I continued that interest. Yeah.
Okay, so now that you are interested in Indian music, right? So how did you pursue that interest? Like, tell us about it. Like, how did you go to India? What was the program? Where did you stay and all those stuff?
Yeah. So I learned early in my career about the Oberlin Shansi Fellowship. And this is a wonderful program, and we're actually celebrating its 70th year in Madurai, in India, but stationed in Madurai. And this is an association that Oberlin College has with the American College and Lady Doak College in Madurai. And it goes back even earlier to it's called the Madura Mission. The American Congregational Mission goes back to 1830. I've done some research on it. And so the roots of those colleges and the relationship between Oberlin go back further. But this program started in 1950, and the first fellow or representative was Joe Elder, who's a really well-known sociologist and been at the University of Wisconsin for many, many years, and has done all sorts of things that created the Wisconsin Junior Year Abroad program, and has done so much for Tamil studies. And other people, Jim Lindholm, many Tamil scholars, contemporary scholars as well, and people who've done ethnomusicology went to Oberlin and were fellows on this program. So I came to Lady Doak in 1985 and spent 2 years in Madurai. And that's just a significant amount of time to really learn the language of Tamil. And I studied at Wisconsin before I went intensively for about 8 weeks. And then we studied at Madurai Kamaraj University as a group. And I also spent a great deal of my time learning Carnatic music. So I studied Mridangam with Sri Shankar Shivan, who's Murugabopati's was his father, and Seshagopalan's guru, and he was in the palace at Ramnad in the 1930s, and so that was an amazing experience. He was about 80 years old at the time, and so I got the real what we call old school version of learning, where he would shake his hand at me and call me Mutal, Mutal. And the fan goes off and I'm sweating, and it was a good lessons in learning how to focus and remember the lessons. And I also studied vocal music with Sri Kamala Ramamurthy, so I learned a lot of Carnatic vocal that way. But my focus was really on Mridangam, and then I came back to the US in 1987, spent a couple years in San Francisco, and then went to Wesleyan University in Connecticut, where again, both T. Vishwanathan and Ramnath Raghavan were teaching there. So I had an amazing 4 years with both of them, but again, mostly with Raghavan. And I was his seshya, and he taught me how to teach Solkatu, how to teach Mridangam, and I did my master's thesis on the Taladasa Pranas, the history of them in various Sanskrit treatises, as well as the sort of contemporary practice of this concept of nadai. So how do you change the subdivision of the beat from 4 pulses within each beat, takadimi, takadimi, to takita, takita, or 5 or 7. How do you make those changes? And that was a wonderful experience learning, writing that thesis. That was my master's thesis. And then I decided to focus on my advisor at the time, Kay Chalamet, Dr. Kay Chalamet, who's at Harvard now. She said, well, so what are you going to study for your PhD thesis? What's your topic? And I said, some, Tamil folk rhythm in 7. And she said, don't focus on a music, focus on a people and the music that those people have. And I said, well, it has to be Tamil people. Tamil Muckle is my Muckle. And this is the language I've been learning. This is what all my experience. And then I realized I had significant experience with the Christian community in Madurai. Learning the literature of Vedanayakam Sastriyar, for example. There's this whole corpus in what's called the lyrics, or the kirtane, the Christian kirtane. So Vedanayakam Sastriyar from Tanjore. So I thought, okay, let me go and look at that. And so I went back in 1991 and did just a brief study, made some connections, met Sham Vedanayakam in Tanjore, and thought, okay, let me focus, because nobody has studied this in ethnomusicology and in English. And so I pursued that, and so I decided that I would focus my studies, my ethnography, at the Tamil Nadu Theological Seminary, Tamil Nadu Irayil Kaluri in Madurai, because that's where they were producing all of this music. And so I went there. I had a Fulbright Fellowship and an American Institute of Indian Studies Fellowship in 1993, and to spend about 14 months. Once I got there, I met the teacher, a man named Anis Chinia, the teacher of Theophilus Apavu, who ended up being my main asan, if I can use that word. And he said, you need to study with Theophilus Apavu. And this is a man we call Paratai.
Mm-hmm.
That's his sort of pen name. Mm-hmm. So I met Paratai. I actually heard his music first. And I heard a song called Tai Tagapanare. I'll just sing a little bit. Tai Tagapanare Sagalateum Petavare Yengasami Unavanangi Sentamil Patapadichom காசில்ல மிருகத்திரி கொண்டு வரல காசில்ல மிருகத்திரி கொண்டு வரல எங்க ஒத்துமையா காணிக்காய பெறச்சோம் தாயி. So I heard this
இந்த
song and
ஒத்துமைய காணிக்கையா படைச்சோம். ஆஹா.
we
ஆஹா.
we
சிறப்பு.
offer our unity
Correct.
instead of any other kind of material offering, right? And we're
Mhm.
poor people. We don't have money to bring candles and
Correct.
so I was really intrigued by his theology, his Dalit theology coming through, his perspective from the village people and the poor people, but also the tune and the rhythm behind this. And so I went to him and he was writing what he calls a Gramya Isai Gramya Isai Varipada. Grammy Isai Varipada. So an entire liturgy, a Christian, CSI based Christian liturgy, fully in Tamil folk music, but from the perspective of Dalit theology. So using metaphors from village life, from agricultural life, and in a sense of liberation, of viditale. So I was completely really captured by the music and his theology, because so much of my work in general in an American context has been about social justice, and I was much more attracted to that than really the upper caste production of Kirtane. Vedanagam Sastriyar was a Velala. He's using Sanskritized Tamil. It's really from a kind of Shaiva Velala perspective from Tanjore, and my heart was not there. My heart was with the poor and Dalit people in the village, and this music really reflected that. So Paratai introduced me and this context to the Parai, and teachers like Arumuhan from Alanganallur, he was involved at the seminary, and so I was really attracted to the drum, because I'm just gonna take. So these are the Parai sticks. And I've been playing stick drums since I was age 11. So the technique that we would use on the snare drum looks like this. And with Parai, you just shift it like that. So it was very easy for me to pick up this technique. And this stick is what's really challenging and really difficult for people to get right. So, but I picked it up very quickly, and I also love to dance.
Okay.
So the combination, Parayatam, the combination of dance and drumming
எல்லாமே.
together was just completely attractive to me.
எனக்கு நீங்க சொல்லும் போது நீங்க மிருதங்கம் ஆகட்டும், கர்நாடக இசை ஆகட்டும், எல்லா ஆசிரியர்களின் பெயரையும் நினைவு வச்சு நீங்க ஒவ்வொரு இசையுமே ஒரு ஆழமாக நீங்க படிச்சதை நீங்க சொல்றீங்க. அதன் வரலாறு தெரிந்து வெறுமனே ஒரு இசைய படிக்கணும் அப்படின்னு நீங்க படிக்காம அதன் உள்ள போய் யூ வாண்ட் டு லேர்ன் இட் இன் டெப்த். அத எனக்கு தெரிஞ்சுக்கிட்டேன் நான் இப்போ. சோ இப்ப நீங்க அதுல இருந்து எப்படி நீங்க பறை இசைக்கு மாறுனீங்க அப்படின்னு தான் நான் கேட்கணும்னு நினைச்சேன். நீங்க அதுக்கும் பதில் சொல்லிட்டீங்க. யுவர் இன்ட்ரெஸ்ட் ஷிஃப்டட் டு பறை because of the social injustice aspect. You wanted to learn the culture and life of those people. That's what interested you. Than the upper level kirtanas and all that. That is very interesting. So now I'm going to ask you, how was it learning Parai as a woman? Usually do women learn it? Tell us about your experiences.
Yeah. So I mean, I have to say that my just to go back for a minute, my dissertation and my book does cover Kirtane, and covers the whole Christian. Again, we're dealing with Protestant Christians, dealing with Church of South India, mainline Christian, not dealing at all with evangelicals or charismatic Christianity, really. And so the use, the reform of the church. This is not at all about conversion. It's about the internal reform of the music and the liturgy within the church. And that's what Apavu was intending to do, to shift from this use of an upper caste and a middle class kind of a music that reflected those values, to reflect the values of the lower castes and the lower classes within the church, right? So keep in mind that, there have been Protestant Christians in India in Tamil Nadu since 1706, when Ziegenbald came with the Lutheran mission. The American Protestants came in the 1830s. Many other Protestant societies came in the mid 1800s. There were schools started. There was a large, almost self-conversion of people in 1915 in places like Darabram and Karur and those Western Tamil Nadu. So many Pariyars converted to Christianity on their own, right? So just keep that in mind, that the majority of Christians in Tamil Nadu have been Christians for multiple generations. Okay. They did not convert in the last 15 years or 30 years even. Okay. So just keep that in mind. So yes, my interest shifts to Parai, and I'm finishing my book, yet at the same time, I'm applying for a fellowship, another Fulbright fellowship, and I want to make a film. I knew I wanted to make a film. So I got a Fulbright fellowship, and I went to with K.A. Gunasekaran, who's a folklorist, Dr. Gunasekaran. He was at Pondicherry University as the Dean of Arts there for a long time. And he took me around to several different sites, and we finally decided on a site where he had relatives, which was this Munavendri near Paramagudi. And I really liked this site because it was kind of a Pakka village. It was a significant large village, had multiple castes in it, and there was this group of drummers who played for local events and were negotiating. They were becoming professional, yet they were still having to negotiate issues of caste in terms of the respect that they were given or not within the village by various groups. And so I went, we met with them. They gave me a little lesson. They thought, okay, she can play. So about being female, and I realized that we're celebrating, women in this event. And so what was so interesting is that as a white person or a white passing person, my background is Middle Eastern Armenian, I have privilege. Right? As an American, I have privilege. With my relationship to people like Gunasekaran, I had privilege. Right? So they took me on with all of knowing all of these things. But as a female in this context, I still had to negotiate, how I was being treated, not by my teachers, but really by when I would go with them, by the audience. So I learned a lot. I got to a certain level that I could play. And I went to a funeral with them, and I said, hey, can I play? And so we got in front of the tear, I think it's called, right? And I was playing, and some of my teachers were near me, and an older man came up to me and started kind of dancing in front of me. And we have to look at the purpose of these drummers in this kind of funeral context. Their purpose is to entertain, right? And to help, particularly the men, deal with their emotions, really through, many of them drink. I'm not talking about the drummers, but the audience members, they drink to deal with their sorrow. The women do opari, the men drink. and this man came up to me and he started dancing really close to me, and almost like trying to touch me. And so this is where it got really, tricky. So my teachers made a kind of an arc around me to protect me. And I could handle this guy, but it was just a matter of their sense of respect. They always refer to me as a ma, right? I'm like, I'm not that old, but they protected me. So this helped me understand their dilemma, that their purpose is to entertain, and it's an economic purpose. It's, there is this spiritual belief that you must play the parai. This is middle caste, and I say village religion. We call it Adi Samyam, village Hinduism. We're not talking about Brahminical urban Hinduism. This is village Hinduism. where there's the drum is used to call the deity, to create possession, trance state. The drum is used to send the soul to Sorghum, right? Or even to the next reincarnation. That's the belief. The drum is sounded in case the person is not dead. It's so loud that they'll wake up, right? These are the beliefs. So those are the beliefs, but my teachers, their main purpose was to, we would say in English in America, to get the next gig, right? To get called for the next performance, right? So they want to entertain. They want to please their patrons. So if they're having to, within this Tamil situation where men feel that they can just touch any woman, they have a dilemma that they have to protect me, right? And so that's not going to be, it's difficult to please their patrons when they're trying to protect me. So this is the reason that they gave, that they didn't teach their own girls how to play, right? So I had this opportunity, but they wouldn't teach their own girls how to play. Now, things are shifting because the drum is being taken out of the ritual context and onto the stage, right? At events like Chennai Sangamam, and Shakti Kalekul plays many, deity festivals, but they always require a raised stage. They no longer play on the ground, right? And they require a proper bathroom and changing area, things like this. So this is the issue for women players is how do you protect yourselves in these situations where men are drunk, and and so until that culture changes, this is the challenge for women folk artists.
ரொம்ப அருமையா நீங்க சொன்னீங்க. அந்த நுணுக்கமான அந்த காரணத்தை நீங்க தெளிவா சொன்னீங்க. இப்போ மாறிக்கிட்டு வருது. அது ஒரு மேடைக்கு போகும்போது அதனுடைய அந்த பறை இசையினுடைய தரமே உயர்ந்து இருக்கு. அப்போ இந்த பாதுகாப்பு இத பத்தி எல்லாம் நம்ம கவலைப்பட தேவையில்ல. ஆனால் ஒரு பொது இடத்தில் ஒரு சாவுக்கு போகும்போது, ஒரு ஃபியூனரல்ல when men are drink, it is very hard to protect the girls. அதனால சொல்லல அப்படிங்கறத சொல்லிக் கொடுக்கல அப்படிங்கறத நான் ஓரளவுக்கு ஏத்துக்கிறேன். நல்ல வேளையாக இன்று பெண்களும் கற்றுக்கொள்ளும்படி அது மேடைக்கு போனது இன்னும் நல்ல விஷயம். இன்னைக்கு அமெரிக்காவிலும் நிறைய பெண்கள் they are playing பறை, and we are so happy about that. Let's come to that. And இவ்வளவு கஷ்டப்பட்டு அவங்க இத அழகா கத்திருக்காங்க. இத்தனை இடர்பாடுகளுக்கு இடையில் எப்படி டாக்டர் ஜோயி நமக்காக இத வாசிச்சு காட்ட வேண்டாமா? பிரபு அவர்களோ இல்ல இளமாறன் அவர்களோ நீங்க டாக்டர் ஜோயி வாசிச்சத எங்களுக்கு கொஞ்சம் போடுங்களேன் அந்த வீடியோவை.
சரி நன்றி.
அத பாப்போம். We want to see.
Okay, so we're going to show this video. Yeah. And let me just say that, let me introduce this. This is a 5-minute solo.
ஒரு நிமிஷம் வெயிட் பண்ணுங்க. அவங்க சொல்லட்டும் எந்த மியூசிக் அப்படினு சொல்ல போறாங்க. எந்த ஐடின்னு சொல்லுங்க.
This is a 5-minute performance that's based on the Budar Kalekul's basic repertoire and basic thing that they do. What's missing here is the dance. And I put this together because during the first summer of COVID, Manimaran had this initiative to have an international parai competition in order to help the parai artists who no longer, because of COVID, weren't able to perform, and they were really suffering. And so he did a call for this, and we had I was a judge, and we had almost 200 applicants, and he had 3 categories: women's, men's, and children. And so people from all over the world, from the US, from Singapore, from Japan entered, but the best players were in India. I think a man from Dindigul won that. But so I decided, well, I really want to be able to play a 5-minute solo. Now, even though this art, and I really stand by this art is a communal art. It needs to be played in a group. But during COVID, I had more time, and I decided, okay, I really want to take lessons. So I learned this from Samaran. He's the 20-year-old son of Manimaran. He's going to Loyola College right now. An amazing teacher. And so let's have a listen.
நீங்க இப்ப அடிச்சிருக்கிறது எந்த வகையான அடி அதையும் சொல்லிடுங்க.
Twin Cities Tamil Sangam, Parai Vertical, Pongal Vertical, Yen Per, Zoe Sharinyan, Yenuria Asan, Mr. Samaran, Manimaran Uria Mahan, Ida Yen Uri Adi.
ஏய் அப்பா! சிறப்பா இருந்தது. ரொம்ப சிறப்பா இருந்தது. நீங்க நீங்க சொல்றபடி அப்படியே ஒரு ஈஸியா வருது உங்களுக்கு. எஃபர்ட்லெஸ் அப்படின்னு சொல்ற மாதிரி வருது. அதற்கு ஒரு 11 வயசுல இருந்து உங்களுக்கு அதுக்கு பிராக்டிஸ் இருக்கு. பல பெர்கஷன் இன்ஸ்ட்ருமெண்ட்ஸ்ல. ரைட். அது ரொம்ப சிறப்பா இருந்தது. இதுல நான் கேட்க வேண்டியது, ஐ க்ரூ அப் இன் மதுரை.
Mm.
To me, Parai is only played only during funerals, right? So what is educate me? Like what is Parai is all about? Like how many adis are there? Like whatever the one that you performed, what is it? Like
Yeah.
explain and educate me. Yeah.
Right. Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to do so. And this is really the knowledge that I'm concerned about that's not getting transmitted. Particularly, there's lots of Parai groups now forming in the US, the American Parai in St. Louis, so many groups all over the country. And what I'm concerned about is no one is learning, people are learning the adis, right? The rhythmic patterns. And these are not talas. These are rhythmic patterns. Actually, can you all put that screenshot up of the adi list? So when I studied with Kuranji Mahler, I studied for 4 months. And over that time period, I learned 35 different adis. Only 3 of them at the time I would even thought of as inauspicious, right? And those were the Savu adis. And there are 3 of them for different points in the funeral. Were you able to put that one up, Ilamaran?
இளமாறன் நீங்க போடுறீங்களா?
So you talk, Zoe, like I'm bringing up a Zoe, like
Okay,
one.
super,
Yeah, it's streaming one. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so all the rest, the other 32 adis that I learned, and I imagine that there probably, I have not done a full, how many are there? I would say there's probably 60 adis, maybe 100, right? And so these are rhythmic patterns. Each one of those rhythmic patterns has an aural association with an event, a ritual context, right? So when the drummers know this knowledge, drummers in the villages know this knowledge, and I think some people today still in the village might also have this knowledge. They'll play a pattern. They'll play a Samyatam or Tapatam, or they'll play Savu, and people will hear it a mile away and go, "Oh, there's a funeral happening. Oh, there's a festival happening. Oh, there's a saranga or a valikapu celebration," because of the particular rhythmic pattern, right? So it's like we can think of it like a ringtone. You set a particular ringtone for your mother when they call, and that's like, oh, mother. So we call it an indexical association, right? So I learned, Samyatam, and there's a general Samyatam. There's one that's specifically for Mutu Marima. There's one that's specifically for Karapusami. Tapatam is the one that most of us know. Jen, Nakudi, 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 Jen, Nakudi. Everybody knows that one. Matu Pongal, this is what they play in Alanganallur for Pongal. Kuravanji, Jen, Janaka Naka Jin, Jen, Janaka, everybody says, oh, that's the gentleman's, Rahman's gentleman. Well, he took it from this pattern called Kuravanji, right? He didn't create that pattern. He borrowed it, took it from these drummers, Jen, Janaka Naka Jin, Jen, Janaka Naka Jin, right? Yeah, right. Exactly. And Kavadi, which is for Murugan processions, Wailatam, etc. And this is a changing repertoire as well. My teachers heard a particular film song and they invented something they call disco, right? And it's very similar actually to the Kavadi. It's just like one syllable different from Kavadi, but it's very fast and it has a particular dance pattern to it. So it's really important to understand this association. This is not getting transmitted to people so many people are learning Parai now. And I don't know, I need to look, Manimaran, I think, is discussing these kinds of things. People are just learning the syllables, the Vaipat or I call it Son Adi. And they're just, learning Jen, Janaka, Nakadin, as opposed to, Temangu or kavadi. They're not learning the terms, and thus the what we call a genre association, and the fact that it's a whole complex of interarts. So there's always a particular dance step. There's a what we call a tune, a mutu. Is that called? No, not mutu. Metu. There's a metu, a tune association. Ta na 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 na. Well, what goes with that? Jenjanaka, jenjanaka. A version of tapatam, and then there's an event at which that would be played in the ritual context. So that I'm concerned that knowledge, sure, there are still parai drummers in all the villages. They have this knowledge, but the transmission of that, it needs to happen as well. At least the terms, so we know which patterns are associated with which events. So that's part of the work that I'm trying to do in the book that I'm writing. And let me just say, maybe you can take that slide down now. The other thing that's important, you asked about parai and funerals. This is a very urban middle class, let's say, legend and stereotype. And we need to ask the question critically, what does it function to do? By saying, well, all they play is funerals, right? It functions to degrade them if you believe that the funeral is a polluting context. It re-pollutes the drummers. It associates the drum with pollution. It reassociates that. So this I don't think any person who lives in a village would ever say that, because they know the parai drummers are called for the annual festival and all of these things. But it's people in the urban areas that, they just play for funerals. Well, that is false. It's not true at all. There are all of these adis, and what's really beautiful is that more and more, and I think this is a lot the work of people like Manimaran, that more and more people are starting to call parai drummers to play for their weddings, to play for various other auspicious events. But the other thing that I've learned recently from visiting the STAR group in Seattle is that from my friend Jay Krishnan, is that in Western Tamil Nadu, in the Polachi area, Daravaram area, when a person dies who is older, who has lived a full life, it's not considered inauspicious. It's considered a festival, a celebration.
Mm.
And so this is new for me. And I need to do some more research on it. If anyone out there knows more about this, Perasi Raka, if you know more about this, and I need to study more about this. When a young person dies, or you die from being murdered or something, okay, that's really mournful. But this idea that it's a celebration, and so, okay, then does that mean that these savu patterns are also auspicious? Does that mean the drum is auspicious? So it's about changing the rhetoric, or can we ever believe that funeral is not polluting? To me, Tamil Makale, that would be your ultimate thing. If you want to prevent this drum from being considered inauspicious, from considering it polluting, then the context in which it plays need to be considered auspicious. And that, that would have to be a big paradigm shift within Hinduism. So, let's see if that can happen. And then just one more thing I want to talk about is the word tapu and tapatam. So another negation that people say, tapu, mistake, right? Right, the synonym. But where does the word tapu come from? Anybody know? Where does the word tapu come from? People say, does it mean plate? Does it mean to beat? Well, if we look at etymology and we look at history, and this is coming through in the book that I'm writing, the word tapu is related to the word dappu in Telugu, in Andhra Pradesh. Okay? Right? Dappu tapu. And our Tamil scholars know that the D and the T are interchangeable. Right? So it's dappu in Andhra Pradesh. Now, we know that the Nayakas kings came from Vijayanagara Empire,
நாயக்கர்கள்.
Nayaka
சரி.
kings in the 1500s, right? So we might say, okay, is there any connection between that Telugu language? We know that Arundatiyars in Western Tamil Nadu and Northern Tamil Nadu play this drum, and they also speak Telugu,
Telugu.
right? So we've got these two, where we've got Dappu, and we've got Parai. So then let's take the word Dappu in Andhra. Well, then there's the word Dap, and we know that I don't know if it's all Dravidian languages or just Tamil, you have to put a vowel at the end of the word, right? You have no words that don't have vowels on the end. So but if you take Dappu and you say Dup, well, there's a drum that's a frame drum, right? The frame drum, just like our instrument here. Let me just grab it, right? It's a short frame, right? A frame. It's one-sided, one head. There's frame drums throughout the Middle East, and in places like Armenia and Persia, and they're called Dup. Okay, so we know there's a lot of interchange with the Middle East through the Vijayanagara Empire. Turkic people, Persian people coming, in the 1500s, coming through ocean networks, the Indian Ocean networks coming across land as well. And so we have Dup, and then in other parts of the Middle East, if you go to Egypt and other places, it's called Duff, right? And we know that the F and the P are interchangeable. So what's the relationship between Dappu and Duff? They're both frame drums. They have a similar name. So this is some historical work that I'm trying to do. The political issue is, are we saying that this drum did not originate in Tamil Nadu? That this particular drum, meaning a frame drum shaped drum, was not the Parai of Sangam literature? And so this is a question that I'm asking. So I'm looking at the historical work, and so I'm sort of moving into, talking about my book. I'm doing historical work on this. I'm looking at Sangam literature, and I've gone through, there are 44 incidences of the word Parai in that corpus. And I've gone through each one of them to say, asking these questions. What shape was the drum? How did it sound? Was it played with hands or with sticks, right? What were the contexts in which it was played? So I'm doing a musicological look at that, not just, the word, but what can the context tell us about these things? And we know, as the Perasier told us, that the word Parai is, first of all, a general word for drum, and it's a specific word. So, we also have to go through that. Are we talking about a general term, or are we talking about a specific term? So I'm looking at that. I'm asking these questions. I'm trying to come up with, we have Siru Parai, so many different types of Parai. But I also don't think I never really see any context in which it was played with sticks, right? The other direction towards doing historical, like how do we do history on this drum, right? We don't, we have Sangam, which is amazing that we have a written corpus, but then after that, what happens, right? We know that perhaps through Jainism, some sense of untouchability comes in by the year 500. For sure, by the year 900, we have in Tanjore, we have land divisions. There's the term Adimai comes in, that the people who played, that are called Pariyars, are considered slaves, right? So we know that untouchability in the Tanjore area, at least, becomes much more solidified by like the 9th century. Well, about the same time, we have Rajaraja Cholan creating, in a place called Darasaram, a temple. It's 11th century temple that shows so many friezes around in the inside of the temple, around the inner temple, where the deity is. So many different images of musicians and dancers. So I systematically went through that, and then I had a photographer go back with Manimaran and take pictures of each frieze. Not a single image of a frame drum. We have drums that look like urumi. We have drums that look like murdangam, maybe tavel. Not a single frame drum, and nothing played with sticks.
Sticks. Okay.
Okay. So again, it makes it. Was there? And so Manimaran really took this question because he kind of didn't believe me. He didn't believe me. So he did his own looking at other various temples, and I still need to kind of collect some of that data. And there are some in southern Tamil Nadu. There are also the work of Anna Seastrom at the University of Minnesota. There are temples in southern Tamil Nadu that were built by the Nayaka kings that have these images in them of frame drummers. Again, most of them play with hands, some of them looking Turkic, but some of them more indigenous. We also have Hampi, which is 15th century or 1500s. There are wonderful images of both sort of players looking more Indian that are leading the king into battle that are playing frame drums, and we have Turkic images. You can tell because there's a particular kind of hat on these drummers, and they are with other kind of diplomats that are coming from that part of the world to meet the king, and so we start to really get these images after the 1500s. So again, it makes me wonder and ask this question, and I do not have an answer yet. If any of your audience out there can help me, please email me. Let's be in dialogue about this. When did the frame drum, become this instrument in Tamil Nadu, become the tapatam or the tapu in Tamil Nadu? This is really my historical question.
So நீங்க இப்போ ஒரு பறை இசை அப்படின்னா அது இசையையும் தாண்டி அது கருவியையும் தாண்டி அதுக்கான வரலாற்று கூறுகள் என்னன்னு நீங்க சங்க காலத்துல இருந்து நடுவுல எங்க தொலைச்சோம் அப்படிங்கிறது எல்லாத்துக்குமான ஆய்வு. தமிழர்களின் எல்லா கூறுகளுக்கும் நடுவில் எங்கேயோ ஒரு கேப் இருக்குங்கிறத நாம we are trying to find out, and that is what you are also trying to find out in terms of parai. I totally understand. That was really interesting to hear. Now that since we are talking about it, now we have Shubha Karekudi from New Jersey Tamil Kalai Kulu. She's here. She, you can ask her your question, because she's learning parai here. Welcome, Shubha.
Hi, Shubha.
Hi, welcome, vanakkam.
I'm so glad that you all are playing in New Jersey.
I'm so glad I am able to meet you today, and it was a nice journey to hear what and all you have learned and researched about parai and music. So happy to hear that. Jaya, your questions were totally awesome, that you are asking right questions, and we are able to, I'm more interested to hear more and more from you. So I'm even ready to learn from you.
I'm ready to come to New Jersey. I'll tell you more about a project that I have, and I would like to come in the spring and work with you guys.
Oh, wow. Please let me know when you come here. Our team would definitely love to meet you and learn from you a lot. And definitely we are not in that like you. We are just learning and still in the learning process.
Yeah.
So Dr. Zoe, you can ask, you wanted to talk to these people, right? Learning parai here, right? So you can ask her your questions.
Yeah, well, so let me just tell you about a project that I'm working on. And I, help all the Tamil Sangam folks out there who have these American parai groups will be interested in that. So I have what's called a public humanities grant from the University of Oklahoma to take my latest documentary, which is Shakti Kalaikuru. It's called Shakti Vibrations, and it's about the group in Dindigul, the all-women's group that's headed by two very progressive nuns, Sister Chandra and Sister Felsi. And they came to the U.S. under FETNA and performed in 2011. And that really was a major spur for lots of groups to start. So I made this film, and it's playing in many film festivals now. It's gotten several awards. It's playing in Paris in April, and I'm going to Paris. But so I have this fellowship or this grant to go around and screen the film the the people who have started these groups, the people like Shuba. So I'm really interested in making contact with the various Parai groups, and the grant is providing monies for me to travel and screening fees and all of that kind of thing. So it doesn't cost the group anything. It's just a matter of them being willing to have a conversation with me afterwards about in reaction to the film, and also just about their experience learning Parai in America and what's motivated them and this kind of thing. I mean, I'm really interested in this question, and maybe Shuba, you can deal with this. It's like, how do we go from thinking of this drum as polluting, that back in a village, particularly in Tamil Nadu, so many of the people who are playing drum in America would never touch it, right? They wouldn't touch it in front of their relatives. They wouldn't touch it in a village context, right? So how is it that they feel that it's okay to touch it in America? It's okay to learn how to play. So what do you think, Suba?
That's a great question, Joe, because this is a great experience actually touching the Parai, right?
That's nice.
Once we touch the Parai, I don't think we can leave it. So it was like, it was like into it. It gives a good feel actually once you touch the Parai. And the experience from the society, as you said, it is like back in India, we are not like played Parai and work with Parai, and not even work with the people who are playing the Parais, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when we touched here, it's a great experience that, some of the people welcome that. Wow, you guys are doing that. How do you do this? And how do you, play this? While beating, you're dancing. We dance just, but beat and dance, it's a little tough. So how you are doing it, all those interested questions, I see that there were welcome questions. But at the same time, there are people, oh, really? You are doing Parai? Here? Why? Why did you start? What happened? What initiated you to get into this? So there were some questions around people, even in America, I faced that. And even back in India, also there were some questions initially, those people were asking. And after that, when I was put fully into it, people accepted it. There were no more questions coming to me, but I know that still that, concerns are with certain people still out there. We definitely have to do something to, make that change.
So how did you respond to those people who in America that question you?
I responded like, I started explaining the whole history of how Parai was before, right? And we know that in between there was a gap that happened. Because of that, it's changed. But it was not like that initially. When I looked at whatever I know from my perspective, Parai is it's like you said also, it's not just for for Savadi. It's for everything, for all the auspicious things. It was used from the communication perspective for those days, right? It's a very old instrument. So somewhere in between, with some political and casteism and all this came in between, this has got into this level that, Parai has stepped aside and put aside that, So I explain it. I explain the history. I tell them, that's what I tell them. So this is the fact, this is the history. And, just because somewhere in between this has got changed, we cannot forget the history. So it's all mindset.
Yeah.
It's all mindset that has to be changed.
And I believe that it's important for the Tamils in America, I mean, this is my advocacy, to also not forget the experience of the drummers of untouchability. Their experience, how difficult it's been for them, how much they've, continued to love this drum, to play this drum, to feel that it's an honorable profession, in spite of untouchability, in spite of being called this way, being degraded in so many ways. So that's what I don't want in the transmission of this drum. I don't want us to erase that experience of these drummers. And the other thing is, I want us to hire those drummers of the lineage
Correct.
who come like Manimaran's sons, who come from the village experience to be our teachers.
Yep.
Right? I don't want, me to be let's hire. Manimaran is coming to Minnesota for 2 months
Wow.
in
Nice.
May, right? To
In
teach.
May? Okay.
Yeah.
If
But he's
possible, if both of you come here for New Jersey, our team members, we have about, so especially for women, right? When we get
right.
into it, and it's really tough to get the women playing along with their work. And even now we have every week practice and just pulled in women to play in our group. And we have about 8 women today. I would say
That's
they are like
wonderful.
performing very well and learning it. We're still learning. As I say, I'm not a
It's a
great
lifelong.
performer. Yeah, we're still learning.
Yeah.
But we have a great team, and not just me. There are a couple of other teams also here who are doing Parai. We can definitely learn from you and Manimar, and when you guys, if you guys could make it in New Jersey.
Yeah, the problem is that I think it's a Minnesota Arts grant that they got to bring them to Minnesota, and they have to stay there. They can't, so maybe before or after, but you guys can work that out with him.
Sure.
Be in touch with him and
Sure.
possibly
you.
other teachers. Yeah. And it's great that the women are playing, and I'm really interested also in the question of how it's empowering women in America.
Yes, it is. It is empowering, and it is. When you were asking questions, you also mentioned that it's kind of slavery that you could see.
Adimani.
Yeah, so that was also there. But when we started taking Parai, even we said no to many places where we have been asked just to for some of the guests just to do some beats for them to welcome them and things like that. We even took a stand to say no, we don't do those kind of things, because we do a performance for the group, not for the individual people. So that also we were doing that. And yes, definitely it is a great experience with Parai for all of you.
Yeah, it's interesting if, for example, somebody shared a story with me that they were asked to play at an event, and they ended up playing while people were eating, and nobody paid any attention to them. This is in America, right?
Yes,
And
it's all.
yeah, so the kind of the kind of respect that's due this instrument as well, and the people who have learned it, that it should be played as a performance where everybody's paying attention.
I think as a Parai performer, or as a Parai performer, we have to also take a stand for ourselves, why we are playing and what we are doing and how that's going to impact the whole society. Like I said, in some of the places we have been even asked, they'll have a stall, so they will tell us, you come here and just do some beats so that people will come and they'll notice us, they'll come. I'm like, but they did bribe some of the team members, and they wouldn't know what it is. They go and do it. And we as a group, we said, sorry, we won't do it, because the Parai, we wanted to give some respect to it. I think that's something that as an individual who is working with Parai, they also have to understand where they have to play, and they have to take some stand.
That's a really great point. Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you. Thank you, Shubha.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you. Thank you for accommodating your time. Thank you. Now that I want to ask this question, Dr. Zoe, now that you said this, we have to learn the people, like we have to bring the real asanas to learn Parai, like we do that for learning Carnatic music, Bharatanatyam and all that. That is really an eye-opener. Like instead of learning from you, after learning for so many years, you are saying that we need to bring the core people to, to teach us, right? So that is my points to my next question, which is like, so is Parai just music, or is it the life of oppressed people? How do you look at it?
I mean, that's a big question. It's probably the question of my book. Um, you know, yeah, of course, it's not. Nothing is just music. In ethnomusicology, we would say, it's not just music. It's not just sound. It's not just patterns that we can analyze. It reflects values. It reflects power. There's a power in this instrument. There's a power to bring people together, to unify people, to heal people. And what's beautiful, if you look at all of those genre um, associations, right? So many of them are for women, right? So I mean, sure, you have first earring piercing, but you have 7 months pregnant, right? There's an
Valakapu.
ID for that. There's balik kapu.
Mhm.
Um,
And then you said sadangu, everything
yeah,
related.
Saranga, exactly. And these are all women oriented weddings, even, for women, or for a couple, but that's really important for women. So I think it's really important to recognize that as well, that so many of these life cycle events, we would call, are oriented towards women. Yeah. So um
So
now within the Dalit liberation movement in Tamil Nadu, the drum has been taken as a the phrase is um uh, a weapon. What is it? I'm sorry. Um, it's a weapon for liberation. So how can music? Is it just a music? How can music be liberating? How can music be a tool of protest? How can music be a tool against oppression? This is how the Dalit liberation movement is using it in Tamil Nadu, and it requires reclaiming its value. And this is the problem within the movement. Some leaders believe you should distance yourself, reject anything associated with pollution. Don't eat beef, don't touch the drum, all of these things. And other people, like my teacher, Baratai, believe we should reclaim its value, reclaim it as worthy. But that takes more effort. That takes a change of discourse, the change of the way we talk about it, and the change of heart, manasamatu, right? Manasamatu. So, but I see that happening, and that's a beautiful thing. And
okay.
I
So you
thank
have beautifully, yeah, sorry.
my Tamil Makkale, manasamatu.
மனச மாத்து அப்படிங்கிறாங்க, மாத்தி யோசி அப்படிங்கிறாங்க, மனச மாத்துங்க, அதுதான் ஒரே வழி அப்படிங்கிறாங்க. இசையின் மூலம் அவர்களுக்கு, அந்த மக்களுக்கு, ஒடுக்கப்பட்ட மக்களுக்கான விடுதலையை வாங்கி தருவது. மிகச்சிறப்பா நீங்க அழகா சொன்னீங்க. இப்போ இந்த reclaiming the drum இருக்குல்ல, where are we in this? Like, are we successful? What are all the efforts being taken in India and in America? Like, is it going in the right path? That's my question.
Yeah, I mean, I think change is definitely happening, and change always happens, and it's okay to use it creatively, to use it in new contexts. People bring it into rock and roll or whatever, while remembering its values as a collective art. This is a group art. And so I think I'm the work of Manimaran is so key in this. He's mostly working within the Chennai context. Also our friend Shakti Tamil in Coimbatore has done a lot of work. I know that he's a friend of yours as well. He's done a lot of important work and research as well. So and the things that I'm trying to do, but I think so it is changing, and I think I just want to communicate, particularly to the Tamil, the American Tamil community, that to be very conscious in your process, to remember the artists. And I love the work that Star is doing in Seattle, because they are doing fundraisers and giving funds back to the artists and their family members, their children particularly, to go to college. They're raising lots of funds to do that. So we need to support the artists in whatever way we can, because if the artists don't survive, and I don't believe that there's a risk of them not surviving, but I think the art is very alive in the village context. But if we don't support the artists, then that's where the knowledge will really be lost. And to understand the full knowledge, not only the history, we don't just go back to Sangha, but we have to look at what happens, in the 9th century, in the 11th century, and all of these things as well, in the 1500s with the Nayakis. We need to do all of this history. So yes, things are changing. American Tamils need to continue to, yes, embrace this drum, touch this drum, make it touchable, but be conscious of our responsibility towards the artists. It's not just about the instrument. It's about the artists and the knowledge that they have.
நீங்க ரொம்ப அழகா சொன்னீங்க. கலைஞர்களை வளர்க்கும் பொழுதுதான் கலை வளரும் அப்படிங்கிறது புரிஞ்சுது. அந்த நாலேஜ் இருக்கணும்னா சும்மா அதை கத்துக்கிட்டு போறது இல்ல, நம்ம அந்த கலைஞர்களை அதுக்கான வழியை கூட நீங்க சொல்லிருக்கீங்க. we need to support the artist, give education to their children, like just not learning the art, you need to support the artist அப்படின்னு சொல்றீங்க. இன்னும் ஒரு படி மேல நான் சொல்லுவேன், touch the drum அப்படின்னீங்க. நம்முடைய கல்யாணங்களில் அமெரிக்காவில இப்ப நிறைய கல்யாணங்கள் நடக்க தொடங்கிடுச்சு. தமிழ் கல்யாணங்களில் நாம் பறையடித்து கொண்டாட வேண்டும். தேடுறோம், நாதஸ்வர வித்வான்களையும் மிருதங்க வித்வான்களையும் நாம் தேடி அலைந்து எவ்வளவு கொடுக்கணுமோ கொடுத்து கொண்டு வரோம். இன்னைக்கும் நான் பாக்குறேன், பறை கலைஞர்களை கொண்டு வந்து நாம் கல்யாணம் நடத்துவதையும் ஒரு புரட்சியாக நாம் செய்ய வேண்டும் அப்படிங்கிறதையும் நான் இங்க சொல்லிக்கிறேன். Now let's talk about your book, and you have done 2 documentary productions. I watched the Shakti Vibrations. Yes, that was an amazing movie. I felt myself in that movie because ஒரு southern cities-ல வளர்ற பெண்கள் பொதுவாகவே ஒரு செல்ஃப் கான்பிடன்ஸ் ரொம்ப இல்லாம, லீடர்ஷிப் ஸ்கில்ஸ் எல்லாம் இல்லாம தான் இருப்பாங்க. அவங்களுக்கு அந்த 1 year training, how it makes them shine. I was really amazed. Tell about all those your efforts in bringing this beautiful music, culture, and the life behind it to the world.
Yeah, so I really thought that documentary film is the way to get this message out, that the Parai is being used as a tool of liberation. And that's, first of all, the idea that music can be used in a political context. Yes, it is. It always is. The song We Shall Overcome for the civil rights movement in the United States. Yes, the music, the arts are a powerful tool of transformation. And when you're dealing with oppressed people, you have to start with their internalized oppression, internalized sexism, casteism, homophobia, all of that is inside. We believe the things that the oppressors are telling us, and that controls us. So how can we transform the individuals? And the model that Sister Chandra and Felsi have created and have used for the last 30 years in Dindigul is to use the folk arts, to reclaim the drums. They also do so many folk dances, Karagatam, Wailatam, Kumi, all of that. And they use it to build the self-esteem of these young women. And that's it's part of their pedagogy. They never say to the young woman who's learning, you're doing it wrong, you've made a mistake. Which is in some ways the way, my teacher taught me, they'll take a ruler and slap your foot when you're playing mridangam, this kind of calling you a fool. That's the old school, classical, kind of pedagogical system sometimes. My vocal teacher was not that way at all. She was so patient with me. But so I'm trying to show economists and development people that development projects need to be founded based in the arts. And that will deal with, you can't just go in to a young person who has failed high school, right? So they're not only Dalit, they're poor, they're women. They've also they've not passed their 10th standard exams. So you can't just go in with somebody like that and say, oh, let's teach them tailoring to give them skills to use in the village when they go back. Because how are they going to learn tailoring if they haven't been able to learn math or whatever? So it's using the folk arts to build that self-esteem, to build leadership skills, collective, group cohesion, that kind of thing. They also have a whole program where they, everybody has a job in the center. Either you cook or you clean or you do gardening. Everyone shares in this production of the life at the center. So it's an amazing program. Sister Chandra deserves so many awards and so much respect for the work that she's doing. Um, so so that's what that film is about, and I'm trying to show through visual images how you go from these girls the first day they come to the center, they're awkward, they can't keep time, they can't even do takadimi, they're playful, to the end after 9 months or a year, they're the confidence you see in their bodies, right, as they're performing is just amazing. That physical transformation, and that's why the medium of film is so powerful, because you can really see. And I think you just talked about that.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know, with the other things with my book, I've talked about the historical work I'm doing. I'm also looking at the contemporary movements. I'm looking at the history of the Communist Party in Tamil Nadu, of their support of the artists. From, I think they were the first ones to put the artist on stage, to invite them to their rallies, to perform, to, in some cases, support them financially. So I'm really interested. I've done a few interviews about this, but I'm really interested in learning more about that shift. I think that was a really significant shift. My last chapter is about the global parai, its use in the diaspora by Tamil people. I'm also doing an analysis chapter where I'm using film instead of traditionally we might use notation or just written descriptions. I'm trying to use film as a means to analyzing. And then I'm also looking just what is the context of the parai in the village today, in the NGO context. So I'm really trying to, write about those various people. Although things are changing so quickly, it's amazing. Yeah.
Okay, so now, after talking to you for like 1.5 hours or so, we got the whole picture of Parai, not just Parai Isai. Like in recent years, we are hearing Parai Isai in all our Tamil Sangam Nigalchigal, like all the functions in Tamil Sangam. But this interview really opened my eye, like the viewers would have felt the same, of complete understanding of Parai. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences, your research, your learning experience in Madurai. Like, since especially I grew up in Madurai, Lady Doak and all, like we were there, right? So
Yeah.
it was really fun listening to all that, and it was so nostalgic. And you can say I had such a wonderful time. Thank you so much for coming here and accepting our invitation to share all your thoughts. We really appreciate your time and effort and the service that you are doing for Parai and the Parai Kalaingargal.